and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dave. Somebody can't hear you.
Okay. May we have roll call, please?
Councilman Beatty.
Here.
Councilman Butterbaugh.
Here.
Councilwoman Klinich.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ellis.
Here.
Councilman Ickes.
Here.
Councilman Kelly.
Here.
Mayor Pacifico is absent.
Okay, we'll begin the meeting by a presentation on the zoning and Saldo rewrite updates by CZB. Gentlemen?
Good evening, council, directors, staff. My name is Matt Ingalls. I'm with CZB, and I also have two of my colleagues, Peter Lombardi and Thomas Edison, also with me tonight. Thanks for inviting us here to give you an update on where we are with the zoning and Saldo update. We have about a 10-15 minute presentation, let you know where we are, what we're going to be doing tomorrow night at the community open house, and answer any questions that you might have. So this update, as you all are aware, comes on the heels of the adoption of the comprehensive plan last summer, altogether Altoona. Very exciting time for the city, and we were happy to see that it moved directly into updating the zoning code in the Saldo chapter of the land development regulations, which is really is how it should be done. You follow that up. Follow the comprehensive plan up with the update of the development regulations, which is required by law that they are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So believe it or not, it doesn't always happen that way, and kudos to you folks for doing it that way. I think it's fair to start with the values and principles that were outlined in the comprehensive plan. As we move forward with the implementation of the plan, we want to make sure that we're consistent with those values and principles. On the left side of the screen, we have the two sets of values. The three at the top are the legacy values. These are the values that people identified with that really we want to continue to be. That's resourceful, self-reliant, and gritty. And then the bottom three underneath that are the aspirational values, which are entrepreneurial, inclusive, and bold. On the right side of the screen, we have the planning principles, which are rooted in our values and having skin in the game, making sure that we're not dependent on others for our future, demand and expect higher standards, and then enhance risk-taking and new approaches, making sure that we don't continue to do things just for the sake of doing them, just because it's always the way we've done them. We're looking for results, we're looking for outcomes, and if we're not getting those outcomes, we should pivot to a new direction. And then also protect our assets in the community. So we, as consultants, looking at the update of the update of the Saldo in the land development regulations and the zoning, look back on these to make sure that we are consistent with these as we move through the process. We are pleased to say that we're on schedule. We're in the tail end of phase 2, which is the draft code development and updates. We will have a draft of each of the chapters by the end of April, and then we'll move into phase 3, which is public review and adoption. So you can see here we are in March at the tail end of phase 2, and underneath you can see that we have several meetings that are part of this this phase, and where we are here in March. We met with the Planning Commission virtually last week. Unfortunately, our schedules just didn't align with their timing of their meeting, but we're pleased to say we gave an update to those folks last week via Zoom. We have a technical committee meeting tomorrow morning, which will be our 6th meeting with the technical advisory committee. And then we also have a community open house scheduled for tomorrow evening at the training facility from 5:30 to 7, which we'll cover here in a minute, some of the content that will be available for public review and feedback. As we started this project, we looked at what are we trying to achieve, and we developed some core objectives. And we reflect on these every step on every phase of the project to make sure that we're meeting and achieving those objectives through the Saldo and the zoning code. Develop a streamlined and easy to understand development review process. We learned early on that at times the process is confusing, and if there's a way that we can simplify it, we certainly want to do that. Achieve more by right administrative approvals, and I think this goes hand in hand with number 3, which is part of the values and the principles, is to expect higher standards. And when you expect higher standards and you set higher standards, it's a give-get kind of relationship. So we want to say, if we're going to expect higher standards, what we're going to give is if people actually achieve those standards, that we get more by right approval through administrative approvals by staff. And then the 4th one, create opportunities for housing options that are real. Expand those opportunities in certain areas to be able to achieve various types of housing in different parts of the city. One of the things that we also did early on is look at the structure of, this is specifically the zoning chapter. How can we streamline it, make it more user-friendly, along with best practices? And you can see that all of the articles that are on the left side, which is in your existing chapter, will make its way into a new organization on the right side. We're going to hit on a few of those things, those articles tonight. Article 2, draft districts. Without going into a lot of detail, here tonight we'll have more available tomorrow at the open house. We have divided the districts into 2 classifications. We have proposed residential districts and then proposed non-residential districts. You can see at the top of the screen there, the RS through the RU are existing residential districts, and you can see how they begin to convert and morph into what are proposed districts at the bottom, which is RN through RND. We talked, I think back in October, the reason why we're combining the RSH and the RL into one district. There's only a couple of dimensional requirements that actually differentiate those 2 districts, and it makes more sense to combine those. And each will have a new purpose statement and also dimensional requirements, very similar to what you have now. It's just they'll be streamlined into district pages, which I'll show you here in a minute. The non-residential districts, again, at the top, you can see that you have 6 non-residential districts morphing into 5 non-residential districts. We have the CNB and then the MRC kind of combining into the MXN, which is the mixed-use neighborhood district. And then one thing to note about the MXD district, currently the CCB district includes downtown, also Juniata. One of the things we've discussed with stakeholders early on is the difference between Juniata commercial area and the downtown area. And right now they're combined into one district, which allows up to 150 feet of building height, which is substantial, something you would expect downtown, but certainly not in the Juniata area. That portion of Juniata would be part of the mixed-use neighborhood district, which is certainly the fabric that exists out there today. And then we have the commercial corridor district that is actually is currently the commercial highway business district, the IL district becoming an industrial flex district, and then we also have the industrial general district. And again, like the residential districts, we'll have new purpose statements, we'll have the dimensional requirements, and also some key uses that will be available for review tomorrow night at the open house. Each of the districts will include district spreads. So each district will have one spread in the new code that provides all of the dimensional regulations or requirements for that district in one location. We'll also have illustrations that illustrate what those dimensional requirements are, and then all the uses will move to Article 3, and there won't be this redundancy that you currently have within your code now, district after district, repeating a lot of the same information. In terms of Article 3, the draft use regulations, will have a comprehensive use table that will list all the districts. Those colors of those districts coincide with the color of the district pages, but they also coincide with the district map. So it will be a little bit easier to follow. So if you're looking for any use that you can do in any district, you go to the master use table. All of the supplemental uses that are associated with certain types of uses that you currently, again, repeat over and over and over in your districts will also be in this section, and they'll be referenced via the section number in the master use table. Again, kind of this point of kind of streamlining this, make it a little bit more user-friendly and best practices in terms of the way that we do modern-day codes. In terms of the CELDO and the development review process, we'll also be sharing this tomorrow night on station number 3. We're simplifying the review process. There's 2 kind of chunks to it. The subdivision review. Currently, you have a no-impact subdivision and a standard subdivision. We're proposing renaming those to a minor subdivision and a major subdivision, where minor subdivisions will be lots. When you have up to 5 lots, will be considered a minor subdivision. And then if it's over more than 5 lots, it would be a major subdivision. So very similar to the process that you use now, but you'll see here in a minute why the move to a major and a minor, which is also consistent with what we're proposing for the land development review process. You currently have low impact development, which lists some criteria to meet that low impact classification. In this case, you wouldn't have to go to, or you currently don't have to go to planning commission, so it would be administrative approval. But currently, if there's off-street parking involved, it automatically kicks you into the standard land development, which would require planning commission review. So we've heard early on that most of the development applications include some sort of off-street parking, which automatically has kicked them into planning commission review. So what we're proposing with this minor and major site plan is that you have applicants with residential units of 2 to 5 dwelling units would be considered minor site plan. And then also, I think it's, I can't read that text there, 5,000 square feet gross if it's a commercial or industrial site, or less, and then site improvements such as pavement, grubbing, and grading of up to 15,000 square feet. So if it's less than either one of those, it would be considered a minor site plan. We're still working with staff on fine-tuning those numbers and making sure that we kind of maximize the most number of kind of projects that can come through. And I think that's pretty close to being what most of your projects would see, would fall within those areas. So that administrative approval would certainly be possible. And then under standards land development, which is currently, that's what it's currently called, would be major site plan review. And that applies to residential site plans with 10 or more dwelling units. And then also the numbers would be greater than 5,000 square feet for commercial and industrial mixed use, or site improvements that are greater than 15,000 square feet would be considered major site plan. And then you would go through the planning commission review process, much like you do now for those. So the idea is, again, to have more by right approval, administrative approvals for more projects, as long as the standards within the code are met, and that would be determined by staff. Tomorrow night, I hope people can drop in 5:30 to 7 o'clock at Margaret Avenue Training Facility, 1747 Margaret Avenue. We'll be having an open house. It's a drop-in anytime. There won't be any presentations, much like we did through the comprehensive plan, as well as the first open house we had for the CELDO and the zoning update. We have 3 stations. The first station would be background information. So for any folks that maybe couldn't attend the first meeting, they come out, they'll be able to see that kind of how we got to where we are. Talks a little bit about the comprehensive plan, Altogether Altoona, what is zoning, what is CELDO, what is the municipal planning code that's at the state level, what's the zoning hearing board, et cetera, some background information. Station 2 will be draft districts, as much like we talked about here, in a little bit more detail, residential districts along with maps, and then non-residential districts along with maps. And then we'll have a station 3, which is that subdivision review and land development review process, which is really based on those last 2 slides that we just went over. So in terms of our next steps, we'll continue to define development standards and some of these numbers that we talked about with staff, also with the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee. And then, as I mentioned, we have a TAC meeting tomorrow morning. Will be our 6th meeting with the Technical Advisory Committee. And then tomorrow evening, we have the open house, and we'll be delivering draft zoning and CELDO chapters for internal review by the end of April. So that's all I have tonight. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer any of them. And I hope to see everyone tomorrow night at the open house.
Hold on, Matt. Any
Sure.
council members have any questions of Matt? Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Want to announce an executive session held after the February 24th meeting and work session to discuss personnel matters. We're now opening the floor for public comment. Please approach the podium, speak directly into the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Groups are asked to, by the mayor, to appoint a spokesman or limit their comments to 3 minutes.
3?
You have one opportunity under public comment to comment. And I ask that anyone coming to the podium does not leave the podium area. If you have something to provide to council, please see Chief Swope and provide it to them.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, I got too close to my mic. Before we start, I wanted to see if we could add this resolution onto the agenda. That would be before public comment. There's Resolution E, and it would be an addition, and I just need, it's for PennDOT, and I would just need a motion and a second to add it. And it is authorizing a highway use agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for the installation and maintenance of a new bus lane in front of 2200 Broad Avenue. And that's in front of the Jaffa. And it's further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same.
Mr. Lord, could you excuse us till we get,
Sure.
you're welcome to stand there.
Could I just ask for 5 minutes instead of 3?
Yes.
That would be nice. Thank you.
And so I just need a motion to add that to the
I'll make
agenda.
that motion.
And a second. All in favor of
Aye.
adding
Aye.
this? Any opposed? Okay, I'm going to add that then to the consent agenda. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mark, sorry.
Sorry about that.
My apologies for needing 5 because I wrote it for 5 instead of
Okay.
3. As you know, council members and honored guests, I'm Chuck Lamarck, as you very well know. Speaking of the, excuse me, in reference to the Altogether Altoona Comprehensive Plan, under Part 3, promote neighborhood health and stability, adopted July 8th, 2024, and promoted neighborhood health and stability. Is under the guidance of the City Council and the City Planning Commission and the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee and city staff, as well as throughout the input from the city residents of Altoona. And this was agreed to by your committee. Copied word for word. Community parks offer more to our quality of life than passive and active recreational opportunities. Studies have shown that spending time in parks is as good as is good for our mental health and for our physical health as well. Recent reports by the National Park and Recreation Association point out that more time spent in parks and green spaces can help individuals fight against mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and stress. In addition, studies have also shown that owning a home near a park, when a park is well maintained, adds economic values. I believe you're in direct opposite of this with your plan to adopt the agenda that you have. You put in your agenda how important the park is, and the development of that park, it hasn't been kept up because the city took out stuff. And the city didn't even cut the grass from most of the time. Oh, I think to put some benches in Orchard Park and cut the grass and put a few implements in there, I think that would make it great for everyone. You misrepresented the funds by targeting a portion of town off the main drag, assuming that no one would notice. You have received objections after objections to this park removal. No one in Altoona supports your decision to destroy the park. No public announcements have been made. The Altoona City Council members are the only ones who want to remove the park. Altoona City residents have attended every council meeting to voice their objections. Council will lose the confidence and respect of this community by continuing to ignore their needs. Council must reverse this decision to destroy Orchard Park to meet the public's desire and avoid further publicized criticism. It's unpopular by everyone. You don't seem to see that. That's important. You're here, you represent them, you're voted in by them. No one wants you to do this. It's not necessary. I don't know much more to say about it. You know, in July I'll be 79 years old. I don't need to be fighting for this. This is ridiculous to have to do this. I got better things to do in the later years of my life. I'm older than most of you. Maybe I've seen more that made me a little wiser than this decision you made. Maybe you'll have to admit you're wrong, but you know what? That's better than losing the park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Any other public comment?
Yeah, I would like to make a public comment.
Okay.
This is absolutely asinine.
Could we have your name
Oh,
and
my
that?
name. It's Patricia Reed. I live in Altoona. But this is absolutely asinine. The population is decreasing. You have that in your plan, and yet you still want to put in more housing on a park that the kids play at. Like, have you no heart, no soul? Like, sorry, it's just sad. It's sad. Like, where's your integrity, your honor? And the thing about like the tourism, why not focus your efforts into reestablishing downtown and enhancing the green space? That's what your public is crying out for, is more green space. They're willing to volunteer, put in the effort, and you guys just turn your head? It's absurd. I hope you do the right thing and have integrity and honor in your voted in position.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Vice Mayor Ellis, City Council members, City Manager Colonel McGuire, welcome, and neighbors and friends. My name is Timothy Smith. I am a retired U.S. Army Chief Warrant Officer, a resident of Altoona in Ward 10 at Rose Hill Drive. I was born and raised by the Pennsylvania Railroad engine house in Elliott Coal Tipple in Osceola Mills, Pennsylvania, just about 38 miles that way. My playgrounds and parks were coal strippings. My jungle gym was an abandoned coal crushing, sorting, and processing facility. And no fish swam in the streams flush with heavy metals from abandoned mine drainage. I was an active proponent for a clean environment from the youngest age. At 9 years old, I actively solicited and urged every voting adult I knew to vote yes on the Environmental Rights Amendment, then on the ballot. This bipartisan piece of legislation passed out of this Pennsylvania State Legislature with unanimous support and unanimous votes. And with my nagging, I can say that I know it passed overwhelmingly 4-1 on the ballot. As I began to assist the neighbors and friends of Orchard Park to understand how this city could sell a public park, I turned first to the state constitution and the ERA, which is in Article 1, Section 27. It is why I reached back into the closet and put my uniform on again tonight since 1997. I left Osceola Mills to serve my country, start to pay back all I have been given, to defend all those rights we hold dear. The motto of the U.S. Army is "This we'll defend." Often I am told, "Thank you for your service," as if I am done or finished, or if I have carried luggage up to somebody's room. Well, I am not finished, and I won't be until they take the flag off my urn and give it to my next of kin. See, I am still serving. And for whom? Well, it's right there in Article 1, Section 27. The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of the people. Our law firm that we finally found turned in a demand letter to the city today, and it lays all that out. I'm not going to repeat it. I then realized in this process that you hadn't turned to the original people that were here before us all. So I reached out to them, and I wear my uniform in their defense and their honor tonight. They wrote a letter. City of Altoona, let this letter serve as our formal expression of our profound concern regarding the proposed sale of Orchard Park. This land, which we consider our ancestral territory within our traditional homelands, has been undeveloped and held for public benefit for generations, a legacy we believe should extend into the future. As the original stewards of this land, we, the Conestoga Susquehannock tribe, assert that we should have been afforded the opportunity to participate meaningfully in any decisions concerning its disposition. Our historical 1845 land claims, the unfulfilled promises of the 1872 Joint Resolution, and the aspirations as embodied by the 1941 Susquehannock Indian Reservation Bill all demonstrate our continued and rightful claim as the indigenous people of Pennsylvania. These documents, though they have yet to deliver full justice, serve as undeniable evidence of our connection to Pennsylvania and the repeated failures of the government to honor its obligations. Furthermore, we believe that the laws of the Commonwealth require that a determination be made before a judge at a hearing, a process that has been disregarded in this instance. We request that the City of Altoona reconsider this short-sighted decision and engage in meaningful consultation. We are willing to work with you in conjunction with local nonprofits and representatives to ensure that Orchard Park remains a community resource for generations to come, the Tribal Council of the Conestoga Susquehannock Tribe. But most of all, I decided to wear the uniform so my daughters and granddaughters would know I was defending their rights still. But most importantly, I'm wearing it not for you, for them, for you guys, or for every Pennsylvania that has a right to Orchard Park, or because every little girl in Philly or Pittsburgh or Philly or Erie or a little boy in some hollow by a strip mine has that right. No, I wear this tonight for those that have no voice. For as that Article 1, Section 27 says, for those generations yet to come. Stop the sale of Orchard Park. No one wants to long drawn-out litigation, which you will lose. Again, let's talk and find a solution for generations yet to come. Please.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment?
First of all, Mayor, City Manager, welcome to Altoona. I have a proposition that Altoona eliminate the local barriers to the licensing of contractors, electricians, and plumbers. You have it in front of you also. There are two regulatory standards, the International Council Code, which gives standardized contractor
Excuse me, sir.
exams.
Sir.
They're actually,
Could you provide your name and address?
I'm sorry,
before you
Lawrence Carter, 1105 Broadway, previous city planner. The ICC code is a standardized examination which most contractors have taken. There's also the Uniform Construction Code, which Altoona has adopted. It requires a submission of plan drawings, the review of those drawings before issuing a permit, and the final written field inspection and documentation of this, which should be filed locally. Altoona has a local ordinance to regulate the licensing and permitting of tradesmen. It limits the availability of trade practitioners licensed to work within the city limits, which controls the supply of tradesmen. Very little to do with the quality. Chapter 270 of Altoona's regulations sets construction standards. 314 has electrical requirements, and 542 addresses the plumbing requirements. These are business licenses. Altoona's regulations control the number of tradesmen permitted to operate in the city. This eliminates competition and controls the supply of tradesmen. There's no proof that controlling the number of practicing tradesmen affects the quality of the work. Electricians. Required training for electricians, the Altoona Code Department certifies who can become a master apprentice or journeyman electrician. The certification shall use only the ICC standards, which is goofy, and does not require documentation of having passed the ICC exam. Altoona requires a local practical exam to be administered by the Electrical and Plumbers Examining Board. Which is it, the ICC exam or the local exam? The local practical exam doesn't reflect the nationally accepted electrical standards. It's used to control the number of practicing electricians. Is this a restraint of trade? That's a question for your solicitor. Number of employees. Each place of business of electrician shall have no more than 2 apprentice electricians to 1 journeyman. This regulation appears to limit the number of licensed tradesmen per business. The regulation tries to control the number of electricians in the marketplace. The number of electricians hired by a private firm is irrelevant and cannot be controlled by the city. Altoona's regulations control the training and the number of licensed electricians permitted to operate by requiring passing a locally designed exam. The 2-party job site inspection reports, as required by the city ordinance, needs to document if all of the workers in the site have completed their apprentice, journeyman, and a master electrician license. That should be part of the permit process. Plumbers, required training. Only the Plumbers Examining Board shall issue the license for master, journeyman, or apprentice. Only journeymen have the option of taking the ICC national exam. The ICC national exam is not an option. It's done by anybody who's a practitioner. It's done usually by mail, and you can usually check it online. Local practical exams are administered by Electrical Plumbing and Examiners Board of Plumbers. Plumbers are required to use a local practical exam. Does the local exam reflect nationally accepted standards, or is it used to control the number of practitioners? Again, question for your solicitor. Is this illegal? Is this an illegal restraint of trade? Number of employees. Each business shall have no more than 1 apprentice to 1 journeyman or 1 master. These aren't regulations, but it control the availability of tradesmen to hold a license. Altoona's regulations control the training and number of licensed plumbers permitted to operate in the city by requiring passing a locally designed exam. The third-party inspection reports, as required by city ordinance, needs to document if all the workers on the site have the correct apprentice, journeyman, or master electrician's license with the correct ratios. If they don't provide the information, who monitors it and who documents it at the job site? The conclusion is that Altoona needs to remove the local barriers to licensing of contractors, electricians, and planners. There's no documentation that these local requirements have any bearing on the housing stock. On the second page, questions. Additional relevant information. Can a city control the number of private enterprises permitted to cooperate? Can a practical exam locally created and locally administered be utilized by a government entity to license private enterprise? Can a government entity require the employee proficiency of local exams for a private enterprise? Can a government control the number of employees a private enterprise employs? Altoona's currently regulations need to be looked at by your solicitor. I gave a synopsis there of how the Uniform Construction Code, a simplified outline of the replacement requirements. A contractor decides to undertake work. They apply for a provisional permit with the master tradesman credentials and document passing their ICC exam, which again can be checked online. The applicant examines the project and decides to bid or accept the project. The applicant purchases a permit to proceed. As work progresses, it's inspected by an independent inspection agency, which exists. We already use a couple of them. Inspection reports are filed with the municipality and become part of the record. They're written. Payment is made. Project records are maintained by the city, include project plans, bid approval, payment, and completion. Relevant records are retained by the city in a file which has all of the requirements, including all the requirements information by the Uniform Construction Code.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, sir.
Your 5 minutes have
I'm
been
done.
exceeded. We do have a copy of your testimony, and I assure
Thank
you
you.
that it'll be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'll try to keep my comments short. Good evening, Walt McCullough, Fairview section of Altoona. First, I'd like to welcome our new city manager. Welcome to Altoona. Thank you for your military service also. So last week, I was caught off guard when I opened my mail and saw my property tax. 26.64% increase in 1 year. I've never seen any increase in all my years of working with corporate budgets. Never seen an increase that substantial in 1 year. I'm not sure how the budget process works for the city. I don't know what you cut out of the budget to justify, or did you cut anything out and just add new things to the budget to justify that increase? The city is struggling. A lot of the residents are struggling. And we don't have to talk about $12 dozen eggs. City's struggling. 26.6% increase is a lot. In the past, you guys have talked, it's a 1.5 mil increase. 1.5 doesn't sound like a lot. Be honest, it's 26.6% increase in property taxes. People are already struggling. So I'm not quite sure what justified that big of an increase in 1 year. I understand the city needs some improvements. For the love of God, please pave Beale Avenue or tear up the blacktop that is there. It'll be smoother if you just tear it out. Beale Avenue is horrendous. We do need some improvements to the city. 26% in 1 year is pretty substantial. Wanted to just make that comment. Now that we have a full-time city manager in place, I was kind of curious how the, I'll call it an organizational structure for the city of Altoona works between the mayor, the city manager, city council. Who reports to who in the city here? Is council on top? Is the mayor on top? Is it all lateral? How's the organizational structure with the city work?
The manager works for the city council,
Okay,
the mayor. Under this form of government, the mayor serves as the CEO of the city and does a lot of outreach with, it was built to do outreach with Harrisburg and Washington,
Okay.
basically be the conduit with them.
And the manager is essentially the administrative officer of the city. So all the department heads report to the city manager, and the manager reports to council.
oh, thank you. Several municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania have, they call them loop laws, loop program, where it's long-time owner-occupied programs. If you've lived in your house for 10 years, you're exempt from any kind of property tax increase. Now, in October, Pennsylvania House of Representatives unanimously passed House Bill 2536, and it's sitting in the Senate right now, PA Senate. And what that does is that's going to allow every municipality in the state of Pennsylvania to adopt these laws that Allegheny County and Philadelphia County have had. So if we do need to raise taxes, can you also consider putting in a loop law for these folks that are owner-occupied properties? If they've lived there for 10 years or more, they're exempt from increases. Not exempt from property tax, just the increases. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Rosemary Ellis. I live at 305 East Logan Avenue. And the reason I'm here is because I'm really concerned about a traffic situation at the intersection of South Kettle Street and Logan Avenue. Okay, I have the house at 305, and lots 301 and 302 belong to the little house 608 South Kettle Street, okay? And this is, their hedges are grown. A guy lived there years and years ago. He planted hedges. So if you're on Logan Avenue on the 300 block and you're trying to pull out onto Kettle Street, you can look this way and towards Walton Avenue and you can see fine. Those people have their hedges cut back great. The property at 608 South Kettle Street It's owned, as far as I know, the people that own the Kettle Inn own that. It's a rental property, and there's a little old lady that lives in there, and she is not physically or financially capable of getting out and cutting those hedges. So this has been going on for years, all right? And the reason that I'm here is because I know it's a codes thing. Every year I go through this with codes. I call, the guy says, oh yeah, I'll send him a letter, and then he has so many days, and then if he doesn't trim the hedges, blah, blah, blah. One year, about 2 or 3 years ago, I actually got a letter from codes. I wish I should have saved that letter, but I was so mad I threw it away. And had my name and address, and the guy said, if you don't trim your hedges within so many days, I'll see you in court, blah, blah, blah. And I called him, and I was like, why are you sending me this letter? I don't even own that land. He says, well, I rode by, and it looks like it's your yard. Dave, you know what I'm talking about because you live in that neighborhood. Okay, so the guy kind of gave me attitude, too, about it, and I guess I gave him some back. But anyway, I got this letter, that I'm going to be going to court and stuff over a property that I don't even own. So he's the guy who owns it. I guess he sends somebody over to trim the hedges. It's not about trimming them. They need to be taken out. And I would love, Mr. Kisler, you send a couple guys over with some chainsaws and take those hedges down to the ground. And you have to be, I'm serious. I would do it myself, except, I'm not going to go cutting down somebody else's stuff, going on somebody else's property. And if you just drive by, it doesn't look like it's a problem. You have to be on Logan Avenue in the 300 block, try to pull out onto Kettle Street. It was really bad a couple weeks ago when we had all the ice and snow and slush, okay? People were they had to pull out really far, okay? And it was very dangerous. And I did go down to City Hall, and I ended up in the codes office, and the lady there, I don't know if she's here, if she comes to these meetings. Anyway, she filled out the information. When I gave her the address, she said, oh yeah, we've heard of that place before. This is a common thing. So the reason I'm here is because, like I said, I know they're going to send him a letter. He'll have so many days to trim the hedges. And spring's here now. Those hedges are going to start growing again. And the thing is, too, people stop at my house. I have actually had people knock on my door and say, can you cut down your hedges? And I'm like, that's not my yard. Or I'll be out in my yard working or cutting the grass or something, and people will stop and give me hell because they'll be like, you can't see to pull out. So it's a dangerous situation. I'm afraid there's going to be an accident. You can see if you really pull halfway out in the middle of Kettle Street, you can see the cars coming, but you might not see a motorcycle. So I'm worried, and this is the time of year people are out on their motorcycles. So, if there's an accident, I'm going to tell the people, the city knew, and they let it be like that. So I would love for tomorrow morning, you send a couple guys over with chainsaws, and like I said, and you have to be in a car. If you're in one of these trucks, you're up high, it might not be a problem. The school bus pulls out there every morning. I'm surprised that nobody from the school district has complained about it, but the school bus must be able to see over it. But if you're just in a regular car, you have to pull halfway out, and there's going to be an accident, man. Somebody's going to get hurt, and you guys are going to be holding the bag. So anyway, you've been warned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your message has been received by Codes and Public Works.
Hi, Damian Spallone, 210 Beach Avenue. Now, before I get to Orchard Park, I would like to address the property that was bought by the city next to me there to put the play equipment and stuff, pavilion, stuff like that. I don't understand why it was so secretively done. We were supposed to have been notified. The neighbors and stuff were supposed to be notified, and none of us were. No letters, no nothing. Can anybody tell me why?
This is public comment, sir. If you want to make an inquiry through the manager's office, we will gladly address that with you.
Well, that, and then I worry about kids playing ball and stuff like that. Am I going to get my windows busted out, stuff like that? So I have to worry about that?
Again, sir, this is public comment. If you'd like to have a dialogue with someone at City Hall, you can either call the mayor's office or the manager's office, and we will gladly sit down with you and have a dialogue.
Okay, well, to me, it's pretty concerning. Not to mention, I don't think it's a big enough area for a park. Although I'm all for keeping a park. Now, as far as Orchard Park, that's been a park for over 100 years, and it is utilized. I mean, kids use that park, they play ball. I've seen kids sled riding, as I've said before. I don't know what time of day you drive by there, BD, but it is used. Kids do use the park. I've seen for myself out there. And I'm going to go through this again. I know I already went through this spill before. But I moved there because of the park and the nice neighborhood and everything that's there. If I would have realized that they were going to put housing across the street and take that park away and that, I would have never moved there. I regret moving there because of this now. But I just want to get this off of my chest. It's really been bothering me, giving me a lot of anxiety. I suffer from anxiety and stuff as it is. Anxiety, depression, stuff like that. And I think you guys need to reconsider Orchard Park and keep it a park as it's always been. Anything to add to that, what I'm saying?
No, this is your opportunity to speak, sir. It's public comment.
But like I said, it's been a park for over 100 years. There's plenty of other areas where they can build housing on and stuff like that. There's like full blocks of like 6th and 7th Avenues, a lot of homes but like falling down and stuff like that. They could use areas like that and build the houses and make them better neighborhoods and build their tax revenue. And also they could make that park, Orchard Park, a better park for everyone. Put new things on there, put the swing sets, teeter-totters, other things that were once on there, and make it a park and quit neglecting it as it's not a park, because it is a park, and we want to keep it a park. And I'm here today. I'm not here for the fun of it. I'm missing work again tonight just to be here at a meeting to get this off of my chest. If the tables were turned, you wouldn't necessarily like the stuff that's going on around you either if it were you. And all the sneakedness and the lies and stuff like that. And the property that was bought like right next to me but was kept hushed until it was a done deal. I mean, I don't think anybody else would like it too well, would they? Not notified or anything. I mean, they could have notified me and said, we're thinking about buying this property to use for the park and stuff. What's your input on it? What would you think of that? I guess, I don't know. Not living in my neighborhood, so I guess you don't really think about that kind of stuff. Instead, I'm stuck with thinking about everything, all the stress and anxiety and everything else. But I just want to put the point across where they need to keep Orchard Park where it is and make it a better park. That's what I think they should do. And we're not backing down. We're not going away. We're going to continue to fight to keep this park. We're going to keep this park. Like I said, it's been a park for over 100 years, well utilized. Kids play ball over there. It's very well.
Thank you, sir. Your 5 minutes have expired. Thank you.
But you're welcome.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll end public comment and move on to resolutions.
Item A is approving the minutes of the Altoona City Council meeting held February 10th, 2025. Item B is approving the minutes of the Altoona City Council's sole purpose special meeting held Monday, February 24th, 2025. Item C is accepting the completion of Nate Kissel's term as interim city manager and accepting Nate's return to the Public Works Department as the director and returning his base rate of pay and benefits to what he should currently be receiving as Public Works Director, effective Monday, March 3rd, 2025 at the start of business. Item D is approving election polling place agreements between the city and the County of Blair on behalf of the Board of Elections in the city for polling places located at the this training facility and council chambers, fire stations 1, 2, and 3 for the 2025 primary and the general elections, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. And then item E is authorizing a highway use agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for the installation and maintenance of a new bus lane in front of 2200 Broad Avenue, Altoona, and further authorizing the city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Any additions or anything that needs pulled for separate vote? Hearing none, I'll call for the consent vote. Councilman Beatty?
Yes.
Councilman Butterbaugh?
Yes.
Councilwoman Klinich?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ellis?
Yes.
Councilman Ickes?
Yes.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Pacifico is absent. The vote passes 6-0.
There are no ordinances this evening. Want to begin prior to the city manager's update. Welcome Chris McGuire, our new city manager, and we're looking forward to working with you as time goes by here. Thank you, Chris.
Well, thank you, Councilman. With gratitude and humility, I'm here tonight before you as the new city manager for this great city. Thank you for trusting me to be a steward of Altoona's bright future. Mayor and City Council, thank you for trusting in my leadership ability. Leadership is a privilege, and I'm fully committed to fulfilling Altoona's vision through dedication, transparency, and a commitment to excellence. I'm eager to work with you, our tremendous city staff, and the community to ensure that Altoona's best days are not behind us, but ahead of us, filled with hope and optimism. Thank you.
Thank you. Council discussion items, Councilman Kelly,
Mayor, I have nothing to offer tonight. Thank you.
Councilman Ickes,
I have nothing tonight also. Thank you.
Councilman Butterbaugh.
I just wanted to say thank you to Chief Merle and Nate Kissel for really doing a great job of being interim managers, and I'm really excited to have our new manager with us, and really looking forward to continuing for positive things to continue happening here.
Thank you. Councilman Beatty.
I have nothing this week.
Councilmember Klinich.
I have nothing.
Thank you. I have nothing additional to add. Media questions.
Thank you. Would anybody care to make any comments on the demand letter that Tim Smith, or the lawyer for Tim Smith, produced?
Bill, since there's threatened litigation, we're not going to have any public comment until the appropriate time in the appropriate forum, which would be in court. Other than that, we'll have no comment.
Could you say whether this means that the case is definitely going to court?
It's just been threatened. There's been no actual lawsuit filed. The city's been given a deadline, and depending upon the city's reaction or inaction at that point, there may or may not be a lawsuit.
Would anybody, and this is, I guess, up to Mike to say yes or no to, would anybody care to comment on the verbal issues raised by the Orchard Park opponents today at this meeting?
We have no comment on that.
Okay. different subject. Would anybody care to say, from council, care to say anything on the suggestion for a loop law, so-called, that would give an exemption for property tax increases for people who've owned a property for 10 years? I guess a residential property, I assume.
Bill, I'm not familiar with that piece of legislation, so I can't say I can give comment on a piece of legislation I haven't read entirely.
Okay. Anybody else?
I've lived in my house for 45 years. I guess the city's going to have to start paying me to live there. But no, I really think, people have to understand, tonight's another example of Altoona needs to create better housing, and we need to create more income for the city. Every year, our employees' wages go up. So we have to raise money to pay the union contracts we have and all the obligations we have. That's basically what a tax increase is covering the additional expenses to the city. My observation is that, there's three things we can do. We can raise taxes, we can cut services, or we can grow the city. I think growing the city and the tax base is the most positive one for the city. And right now, unfortunately, it is a tough time, but we didn't raise taxes for multiple years, and then that always catches up. So, that's my 2 cents.
Bill, I just want to point out that of the tax increase, we committed $2 million to the comprehensive plan of that increase, and $1 million went into capital improvements so that we don't have to borrow capital improvements. So we get out of the history of borrowing for capital improvements.
Anybody else on that? And then finally, would anybody care to comment on Larry Carter's belief that the regulations regarding licensing of tradesmen ought to be, as I understand it, ought to be scaled back, I guess?
Bill, as you're aware, we're looking at what options we have there, and speaking for myself only, I will take a look at it and certainly give it its due.
Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.